Sariputta, I recall having lived a holy life possessing 4 factors. I have practiced asceticism, the extreme of asceticism. I have practiced coarseness, the extreme of coarseness. I have practiced scrupulousness, the extreme of scrupulousness. I have practiced seclusion, the extreme of seclusion. Such was my asceticism, Sariputta, that I went naked, rejecting conventions, licking my hands, not coming when asked, not stopping when asked. I did not accept food brought or food specially made, or an invitation to a meal. I received nothing from a pot, from a bowl, across a threshold, across a stick, across a pestle, from 2 eating together, from a pregnant woman, from a woman giving suck, from a woman lying with a man, from where food was advertised to be distributed, from where a dog was waiting, from where flies were buzzing. Let's stop here for a moment. Now, some of these you may not understand why he does not accept food from a pregnant woman, or a woman giving suck to a baby, or where a dog was waiting, where flies were buzzing. This is compassion without wisdom. When he saw, for example, a woman pregnant, he thought, if I take food from this woman, then she will have less to eat, and the baby in the womb will have less food. So he refused to accept. So similarly, when a woman is giving suck to the baby, then he thinks, if I accept food from the woman will have less food, and the baby will have less milk to drink. So he refused to accept. And when the dog was waiting, then he thought, if I accept this food, the dog may not have food to eat, and he refused to take. When the flies were buzzing, then he thought, if I accept the food, then the flies will have less food to eat. So all this is compassion without wisdom. I accepted no fish or meat. You see this, not accepting fish or meat, this vegetarian practice also is an external sect practice. It's not the Buddha's practice. So before he was enlightened, he was also practicing like the Brahmins. Refused to, or the Jains or Nigantas also were vegetarians, but not after the Buddha was enlightened, then he did not continue with such practice. I drank no liquor, wine or fermented brew. I kept to 1 house to 1 morsel. I kept to 2 houses to 2 morsels. I kept to 7 houses to 7 morsels. Let's stop here for a moment. This was an external sect practice. When they beg for their food, they go maximum 7 houses. If they don't get food after 7 houses, they go back. They're not supposed to go to more than 7 houses. And this has crept into Mahayana Buddhism. It's also mentioned in Mahayana Buddhism. And they go and beg for food, not more than 7 houses. I lived on 1 saucerful a day, on 2 saucerfuls a day, up to 7 saucerfuls a day. I took food once a day, once every 2 days, once every 3, up to 7 days, and so on up to once every fortnight. So you see, up to the extent 14 days, he only take food once. But when he eats, he will eat until he cannot eat anymore. And then after that, he has to starve for 13 days. I dwelt pursuing the practice of taking food at stated intervals. I was an eater of greens or millet or wild rice or hide parings or moss or rice bran or rice scum or sesame flour or grass or cow dung. In other words, at one time he eat only greens and he refused to eat any other thing. And then later he found he did not become enlightened in that way. Then he eat only millet and nothing else. And then he found he was not enlightened. And then he ate only wild rice. Similarly, he tried one thing after another. I lived on forest roots and fruits. I fed on fallen fruits. That means he lived in the deep forest without coming out, and only feed on the fallen fruits and the roots of plants. I clothed myself in hem mixed cloth, in shrouds, in refuse rags, in tree bark, using the tree bark as a robe, as a clothing, in antelope hide, in strips of antelope hide, in kusa grass fabric, in bark fabric, in wood shavings fabric, in head hair wool, in animal wool, in owl's wings. So instead of using cloth to make a rope, he used all these things to make a rope. And it's mentioned somewhere, I forgot where, maybe in the Vinaya books. It says of all these different types of ropes, the most uncomfortable was the one made of hair, using hair to to cover yourself. I was one who pulled out hair and beard. Instead of shaving, I pulled out the hair. Pulled out hair and beard, pursuing the practice of pulling out hair and beard. I was one who stood continuously, rejecting seats. I was one who squatted continuously, devoted to maintaining the squatting position. I was one who used a mattress of spikes. I made a mattress of spikes my bed. This one like some of the yogis, a bed of nails, sleep on a bed of nails. I dwelt pursuing the practice of bathing in water 3 times daily, including the evening. And this one is a Hindu practice. They think they bathe themselves in the river, it will wash away their sins. Thus, in such a variety of ways, I dwelt pursuing the practice of tormenting and mortifying the body. Such was my asceticism. Such was my coarseness, Sariputta, that just as the bole of a tinduka tree, accumulating over the years, cakes and flakes off, so too dust and dirt, accumulating over the years, caked off my body and flaked off. It never occurred to me, let me rub this dust and dirt with my hand, or let another rub this dust and dirt off with his hand. It never occurred to me thus. Such was my coarseness. In other words, for years I never took a bath until all that, what we call that daki, all that dirt accumulated on the skin. Such was my scrupulousness, Sariputta, that I was always mindful in stepping forwards and stepping backwards. I was full of pity even for the beings in a drop of water thus. Let me not hurt the tiny creatures in the crevices of the ground. Such was my scrupulousness. This again, compassion to the extreme of having no wisdom. He thought, if he step on the water also, and there are tiny creatures inside there, might harm them. So wherever he stepped also, he was careful. Such was my seclusion, Sariputta, that I would plunge into some forest and dwell there. And when I saw a cowherd, or a shepherd, or someone gathering grass or sticks, or a woodsman, I would flee from grove to grove, from thicket to thicket, from hollow to hollow, from hillock to hillock. Why was that? So that they should not see me, or I see them. Just as a forest-bred deer, on seeing human beings, flees from grove to grove, from thicket to thicket, from hollow to hollow, from hillock to hillock. So too, when I saw a cowherd or a shepherd, etc., then I would flee. Such was my seclusion. So here, he was behaving like a wild animal. See any human beings come, quickly run away. I would go on all fours to the cow pens when the cattle had gone out and the cowherd had left them, and I would feed on the dung of the young suckling calves. As long as my own excrement and urine lasted, I fed on my own excrement and urine. Such was my great distortion in feeding. You see, the desire to become liberated was so intense for the Buddha that he tried everything, even eating cow shit and eating his own shit. How many people can do it? So it's not easy to become a Buddha. A Buddha is someone who has been an Arya before but has forgotten the Dhamma. All he knows that he must strive for enlightenment. But because he has forgotten all the Dhamma he learned, so he practiced in the wrong way also. He still continues practicing. So this type of practice, no wonder the Buddha said, a woman cannot become a Buddha. Woman can become an Arahant. Because a woman can learn the Dhamma and practice easier way. But a Buddha, because he has forgotten the Dhamma and there's no one to show him the way, he'll practice to the extent of nearly killing himself. That's why woman cannot become a Buddha. So feeding on your own excrement, even the dog also won't do that. I will plunge into some awe-inspiring grove and dwell there. A grove so awe-inspiring that normally it would make a man's hair stand up if he were not free from lust. When those cold wintry nights came during the 8 days interval of frost, I would dwell by night in the open and by day in the grove. In the last month of the hot season, I would dwell by day in the open and by night in the grove. And there came to me spontaneously this stanza never heard before, chilled by night and scorched by day, alone in awe-inspiring groves, naked, no fire to sit beside, the sage yet pursues his quest. So you see how hard the Buddha struggled. You can imagine now and then he'll think of his family, probably his tears will come down. But his determination was so strong, he still continued. I would make my bed in a charnel ground with the bones of the dead for a pillow, and the cowherd boys came up and spat on me, urinated on me, threw dirt at me, and poked sticks into my ears. Yet I do not recall that I ever aroused an evil mind of hatred against them. Such was my abiding in equanimity. So here he was trying to practice equanimity. Whatever people do to him, he just ignores it, just tolerates it. Sariputta, there are certain recluses and Brahmins whose doctrine and view is this: purification comes about through food. They say, let us live on kola fruits, and they eat kola fruits. They eat kola fruit powder, they drink kola fruit water, and they make many kinds of kola fruit concoctions. Now I recall having eaten a single kola fruit a day. Sariputta, you may think that the kola fruit was bigger at that time, yet you should not regard it so. The kola fruit was then at most the same size as now. Through feeding on a single kola fruit a day, my body reached a state of extreme emaciation. Because of eating so little, my limbs became like the jointed segments of vine stems or bamboo stems. Because of eating so little, my backside became like a camel's hoof. There was no backside. Because of eating so little, the projections on my spine stood forth like corded beads. Because of eating so little, my ribs jutted out as gaunt as the crazy rafters of an old roofless barn. Because of eating so little, the gleam of my eyes sank far down in their sockets, looking like a gleam of water that has sunk far down in a deep well. Because of eating so little, my scalp shriveled and withered as a green bitter gourd shrivels and withers in the wind and sun. Sometimes we see in the newspaper, famine in Africa, something like that. Because of eating so little, my belly skin adhered to my backbone. Thus, if I touched my belly skin, I encountered my backbone. If I touched my backbone, I encountered my belly skin. Because of eating so little, if I tried to ease my body by rubbing my limbs with my hands, the hair, rotted at its roots, fell from my body as I rubbed. And no, his food was not nutritious, so he just rubbed the skin only, the hair would drop off. Sariputta, there are certain recluses and Brahmins whose doctrine and view is this: purification comes about through food. They say, let us live on beans. And the same way, they will take bean powder and they make all kinds of concoctions with beans. And similarly, let us live on sesamum, let us live on rice. And they eat rice powder, they drink rice water, and they make many kinds of rice concoctions. Now I recall having eaten a single rice grain a day. Sariputta, you may think that the rice grain was bigger at that time, yet you should not regard it so. The rice grain was then at most the same size as now. Through feeding on a single rice grain a day, my body reached a state of extreme emaciation. Because of eating so little, the hair rotted at its roots, fell from my body as I rubbed. So you see, the Buddha says that there are recluses and ascetics who think that purification comes about through food, the type of food you eat. And nowadays, even in Buddhism, you have people thinking like that, that by becoming vegetarians, you can purify yourself. It's not only in Buddhism, in other religions also you find, also they practice, there are some, they don't take certain types of food. So all this is coming from that perception that by controlling your food, there is some kind of purification involved. The Buddha says, no, you don't purify your mind through your mouth. Yet, Sariputta, by such conduct, by such practice, by such performance of austerities, I did not attain any superhuman state, any distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones. Why was that? Because I did not attain that noble wisdom, which when attained is noble and emancipating and leads the one who practices it in accordance with it, to the complete destruction of suffering.